Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been about a week or so since we dropped an actual video. So the Drunken Idiots podcast seems to be on a bit of a hiatus. We've got Chris has been busy doing his thing, and so I decided I'm gonna drop a little video, a quick one. It won't be the exact podcast that we're used to seeing, but nonetheless, I will take a nice ceremonial shot for everyone out there. Uh, and get to some of this week's gaming news that we haven't gotten to in quite a while on the channel. We have been dropping some shorts of other creators out there with quick commentary and things like that. Hopefully, you've been enjoying that stuff. Without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to start off with quick news about Sony. So, Sony's actually got this rental service for PlayStations out in Japan. Since actually in Japan, I don't know if you guys know this, but the ps5 is even more expensive than it is elsewhere due to the Japanese yen being valued lower than the US dollar, for example, amongst other things like, inflation and things like that. So renting a PS5 has actually been a bit of a boon for Sony since they partnered with a rental service out in Japan, and it's actually a really popular service. And it seems like it's been so popular for Sony that they're actually going to be bringing this out in the United Kingdom as well, partnering with a rental service out there, which got me really to think. This really takes off in the UK and it's already taken off in Japan. How long until they do a leasing service? Because that's basically what it is. You can actually either rent it month to month, or you can do like a 36-month contract and pay less per month. And I think they have a yearly contract out as well for like a year lease. And then at the end of the lease, you give the system back. And if you're, say, renting games from GameFly, for example, then you really don't have to own much. Um, but yeah, it got me to thinking, like, what is this future that they're looking at? Is this something that they possibly would be looking at as a business model elsewhere in the United States, for example, or in other parts of Asia? And what could it lead to? Like, imagine a future where they rent you or they lease you this console for a limited time, and then when the run of the console is over or the end of the life cycle of the console is over, they take their console back, recycle the parts for whatever reason, and it goes back to what it's even scarier, right? Because now you really own nothing if they want you to have a piece of hardware. um and yeah, but yeah, it's a little too soon to tell how popular this thing is going to be in the United Kingdom. But for now, I mean, let's see what happens. It might take off. A digital PS5 is still around $500. So and that's digital console only. So yeah, we'll see how that works. The next bit of news here is Nintendo related, and so we're gonna switch over here so we can take a look at it over from GoNintendo.com, and it's a brand new emulator that is coming over to the Nintendo Switch. So as you guys know, Nintendo in the last few years has been taking emulators and emulation websites down left and right. And a lot of people out there think that it is a gray area, that some emulators can be considered legal, even though there's some cases in the 1980s where emulation was actually ruled in the courts not to be legal, but that's neither here nor there. The reason that these Switch emulators got taken down in the first place was because Nintendo was finding source code for Switch hardware and software encoded into the emulators, and so they own that intellectual property. Which brings us to this news article here from GoNintendo.com. It says new Switch emulator dev is looking to dodge issues with Nintendo. Nintendo has been on a tear in recent years when it comes to emulators. The Big N has long since had it out for emulators, and they've found ways to squash some of the biggest options when it comes to Switch. Still, despite their best efforts to deter other would-be emulator devs, yet another has come out of the woodwork to try their hand. Developer, I guess, N3XOX1 is working on the NX Emu, yet another Switch emulator, but they're taking a different approach. Their goal is to try and create an emulator that should be able to avoid all the issues Nintendo usually cites going after projects. But Whether they can actually pull it off remains to be seen. Now, in my opinion, if you're already trying to dodge what Nintendo is, doing to pull down the other emulators, I'm gonna say good luck. This does not sound good, and you've already put yourself out in the radar of Nintendo's ninjas, as they call them on the web. Cheers, everyone. And the article continues. It says N3XOX1 is breaking their emulator down into pieces in order to build things out in a way that shouldn't ruffle Nintendo's feathers. Now, of course, it's just the fact that another Switch emulator is in the works is enough to get Nintendo's attention, and you can bet they'll stop at nothing to end the project. Now we get to sit back and see not if Nintendo makes a move, but when. Should the big N swoop in to kill this emulator off, we'll make sure to let you know. Well, yeah, in my opinion, this is definitely going to be something that Nintendo is going to immediately send a cease and desist order, especially when you're just a regular creator or a regular developer, like in this case. There's no chance you're going to have the money to go up against Nintendo in court. And we know they have a great track record in court. They rarely lose, and usually, if they lose, they go into an appeals process, and they usually win the appeals. So, going head to head with Nintendo's lawyers is very difficult. If anybody out there knows one thing, is Nintendo protects their intellectual property. Why would you even try at this point? Set your sights somewhere else. But yeah. And I know that this is controversial. A lot of people out there believe in, emulators save the video game archiving and all this other stuff. But that's neither here nor there. They don't own the property. They don't own the source code, and they definitely don't own Switch and Switch software. So here's the thing: with the Switch 2 coming out, the Switch emulator is actually eating away at some of the profits potentially, because the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with every Switch 1 software, so 99% or so. And yeah, so potentially those Nintendo Switch games are still going to be able to be sold to new customers even if they buy a Switch 2. I would say, listen, if you're going to work, my advice to every developer out there, or every person trying to work on something like this, work on it quietly. Don't announce it. Put it out there after it's done. And that applies to any fan-made projects too. The minute you announce it, you put a trailer out there, and I understand you're proud of your project, but you're setting yourself up for a lawyer's car a visit. The next thing that we're going to jump into here is Switch 2 FCC filing confirm NFC and Wi-Fi 6 support. So we're officially less than a month from the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct, which will be held on April 2nd, 2025. There's no doubt that the event is going to be our biggest info drop on the Switch 2 yet. But that doesn't mean there aren't details to glean before the special presentation. Thanks to a new round of filings from the FCC, we have some more details on the tech you'll find inside the Switch 2. Nothing mind-blowing has been discovered this time around, but there's some details fans will still be happy to hear about nonetheless. You might remember that back in February, a rumor popped up about a seemingly Switch 2 related patent that pointed to the inclusion of NFC support. Now, through the latest FCC filings, we can see that this is indeed the case. The FCC tech will be in the right Joy-Con once again, and the NFC, and this will be used just in the same as it was on the original Switch to scan Amiibo data. That's not the only discovery that's hiding in the FCC filings, as we now know what kind of Wi-Fi the system will employ. Switch 2 users can expect support for Wi-Fi 6 networks with up to 80 megahertz of bandwidth, which is a bump up from the Wi-Fi 5 on the original Switch. With that said, please note that it seems Switch 2 won't support Wi-Fi 7 or 6E, and the FCC test only mentions 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz networks. Last but not least, the FCC filings show Switch 2 rated for a maximum of 15 volts, but they also mention an AC adapter that goes up to 20 volts, which means that the adapter and dock for the original Switch will not be compatible with the Switch 2. It's a bump up in voltage, apparently. So, yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, Wi-Fi 6, I know it's not 6E or 7, but I think that's more than good enough. I've had excellent experiences with Wi-Fi 6, and I haven't had a necessary need to upgrade to anything faster as far as getting a new Wi-Fi card or anything like that for my computer. But yeah, I mean, I welcome anything that will be an update. So again, new Wi-Fi, 6 support, and it's nice to know that if you do play your old Switch 1 games, at the very least, those amiibo scans will still work. And all of those amiibos that you purchased over the years, I have a few somewhere around here somewhere, and they will still work as well. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for joining me here on the channel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe if I've earned it. And hopefully we will catch you guys next week with a Drunken Idiots podcast. And if not, then maybe we'll do a new type of a weekly podcast video with a rotating host, perhaps. Want to thank you guys for being here as always, and I will catch you guys in the next video.